10 code. 10 codes, officially known as 10 signals, are brevity codes used to represent common phrases in voice communication, particularly by law enforcement and in citizens' band CB radio transmissions. The police version of 10 codes is officially known as the APCO Project 14 Aural Brevity Code. The codes, developed during 1937, 1940, and expanded in 1974 by the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials International APCO, allow brevity and standardization of message traffic. They have historically been widely used by law enforcement officers in North America, but due to the lack of standardization in 2006, the U.S. federal government recommended they be discontinued in favor of everyday language. History. APCO first proposed Morse code brevity codes in the June 1935 issue of the APCO Bulletin, which were adapted from the procedure symbols of the U.S. Navy, though these procedures were for communications in Morse code, not voice. In August 1935, the APCO Bulletin published a recommendation that the organization issue a handbook that described standard operating procedures, including a standard message form for use by all police departments, a simple code for service dispatches relating to corrections, repetitions, etc., a standard arrangement of the context of messages. For example, name and description of missing person might be transmitted as follows: name, age, height, weight, physical characteristics, clothing if car used, the license, make, description, and motor number. This information would actually be transmitted in the text of the message as follows: John. A standard record system for logging the operation of the station. Other important records in accordance with the Uniform Crime Reporting System sponsored by the International Association of Chiefs of Police. The development of the APCO 10 signals began in 1937 to reduce use of speech on the radio at a time when police radio channels were limited. Credit for inventing the codes goes to Charles Charlie Hopper, Communications Director for the Illinois State Police, District 10 in Passatum, Illinois. Hopper had been involved in radio for years and realized there was a need to abbreviate transmissions on state police bands. Experienced radio operators knew the first syllable of a transmission was frequently not understood because of quirks in early electronics technology. Radios in the 1930s were based on vacuum tubes powered by a small motor generator called a dynamotor. The dynamotor took from 1/10 to 1/4 of a second to spin up to full power. Police officers were trained to push the microphone button, then pause briefly before speaking. However, sometimes they would forget to wait. Preceding each code with 10 gave the radio transmitter time to reach full power. An APCO Bulletin of January 1940 lists codes assigned as part of standardization. In 1954, APCO published an article describing a proposed simplification of the code based on an analysis conducted by the San Diego Police Department. In the September 1955 issue of the APCO Bulletin, a revision of the 10 signals was proposed, and it was later adopted. The 10 signals were included in APCO Project 2 1967, Public Safety Standard Operating Procedures Manual, published as study cards in APCO Project 4 1973, 10 signal cards, and then revised in APCO Project 14 1974. In popular culture, 10 codes, especially 10-4 meaning understood, first reached public recognition in the mid to late 1950s through the popular television series Highway Patrol with Broderick Crawford. Crawford would reach into his patrol car to use the microphone to answer a call and precede his response with 10-4. 10 codes were adapted for use by CB radio enthusiasts. C.W. McCall's hit song Convoy 1975, depicting conversation among CB communicating truckers, put phrases like 10-4 and what's your 20, 10-20 for where are you into common use in American English. The movie Convoy 1978, loosely based on McCall's song, further entrenched 10 codes in casual conversation. The 10 codes used by the New York Police Department have returned to public attention thanks to the popularity of the television series Blue Bloods. However, the 10 codes used by the NYPD are not the same as those used in the APCO system. For example, in the NYPD system, code 10-13 means officer needs help, whereas in the APCO system officer needs help is code 1033. The New Zealand reality television show Police 10-7 takes its name from the New Zealand Police 10 code 10-7, which means unit, has arrived at job. The syndicated internet radio countdown program, What's Your 20, is named after the code for location. Police officer retirement. Often when an officer retires, a call to dispatch is made. The officer gives a 10-7 code out of service and then a 10-42 code ending tour of duty. Signals by era. Replacement with plain language. While 10 codes were intended to be a terse, concise, and standardized system, the proliferation of different meanings can render them useless in situations when officers from different agencies and jurisdictions need to communicate. In the fall of 2005, responding to inter-organizational communication problems during the rescue operations after Hurricane Katrina, the United States Federal Emergency Management Agency FEMA discouraged the use of 10 codes and other codes due to their wide variation in meaning. The Department of Homeland Security's SAFECOM program, established in response to communication problems experienced during the September 11 attacks, also advises local agencies on how and why to transition to plain language, and their use is expressly forbidden in the nationally standardized incident command system, as is the use of other codes. APCO International stated in 2012 that plain speech communications over public safety radio systems is preferred over the traditional 10 codes and dispatch signals. 19 states had changed to plain English by the end of 2009. As of 2011, 10 codes remained in common use in many areas, but were increasingly being phased out in favor of plain language. Clear speech procedure. In 1971, the Public Safety Department of Lakewood, Colorado published a study comparing the APCO 10 code with the proposed clear speech procedure. The study used standards for judgment of both communications procedures based on the Public Safety Communications Standard Operating Procedure Manual, 1970 edition, published by APCO. Roger to be used as acknowledgement. Affirmative to be used when yes is needed. Help to be used when in danger and urgent assistance is needed. Phrase word brevity code. About 1979, APCO created the phrase word brevity code as a direct replacement for the 10 code. Ics Clear Text. In 1980, the National Incident Management System published a document, Ics Clear Text Guide, which was another attempt to create a replacement for 10 codes. The list of code words was republished in the 1990 Montana Mutual Aid and Common Frequencies document. Related codes. Brevity codes other than the APCO 10 code are frequently used and include several types. The California Highway Patrol uses 10 codes, along with an additional set of 11 and higher codes. California Penal Code sections were in use by the Los Angeles Police Department as early as the 1940s, and these 100 code numbers are still used today instead of the corresponding 10 code. Generally, these are given as two sets of numbers 187 or 5150, with a few exceptions such as 459 burglary, which is given as 459. The American public was made aware of these California Penal Code references as a result of the TV series Adaminus 12, which used them habitually in radio communications and in the main title of the show. The best known include 187, homicide; 211, robbery; 415, disturbance; 417, person with a weapon; 502, intoxicated driver. driver, 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 driver. 5150. Mentally disturbed person, actually a reference to the California Welfare and Institutions Code. The New York Fire Department uses its own 10-code system. The New Zealand Fire Service uses a system of K-codes to pass fire appliance availability statuses as well as operational messages. For example, cone means proceeding to incident, while 99 means structure fire, well involved. The New Zealand police also use some K-codes with completely unrelated meanings to those used by NZFS. Police code cone means no further police action required. Telegraph and teletype procedures, Q code, and prosigns for Morse code are used in amateur radio aviation and marine radio. They provide specific abbreviations for concepts related to aviation, shipping, RTTY, radio telegraph, and amateur radio. In radio telegraph operation, a Q code is often shorter and provides codes standardized by meaning in all languages essential for international shortwave radio communications. C codes are used for military radio communications NATO countries, and like Q codes are standardized across languages.